Hey, welcome back to the channel. If you're a real estate agent looking for a consistent stream of leads that could possibly even be generated in your sleep, you got to watch this video. I'm not lying. This is no BS. I know a lot of people sell a lot of that kind of snake oil, but I'm going to break down for you how you can build this out for yourself right now in this video. Let's jump in. All right, now before we get started, remember I'm Isaac Guzman with Real Estate CEOs, and I'm always here giving you the best, most relevant information on all things real estate, and I'm going to help you out with this, but make sure that you subscribe to the channel, that you like, you comment, and you share this video. Let me know your thoughts at the end, and at the very end, I'll actually invite you to be part of Agent War Room. I'll give you your specific call to action for that, but let's jump right into generating leads in your sleep. It's evergreen webinars. Now, you might not be ready for that, or you might be thinking, Isaac, okay, I've heard about doing webinars. I've done one with my lender partner or something like that before, and I don't know exactly how you can make it happen in your sleep or how it can actually be effective, because sometimes people run webinars and they're not effective. I'm going to show you how to do it using the specific tool Webinar Jam and Ever Webinar. It's actually the same account, but they have two separate tools that you can use. I'll break down how to use that here in just a second. But first, why do webinars work? Simply because they position you as an authority. Whatever you're speaking about in that webinar, you become an authority based on how you structure the ad, how you structure your landing page, how you structure your presentation, and the fact that you are presenting to them. It gives that opportunity for you to establish authority, build a deeper connection that builds trust, and that trust leads to conversion. So like I said, the tools that we'll be using or that I'll be describing is Webinar Jam and Ever Webinar. I'll go ahead and drop a link in the description for the video below. And here's the thing. These aren't the end-all be-all tools of how you can generate landing pages, forms, and follow-up sequences. I actually don't use those tools for that. I use a tool called Go High Level. I'll also drop a link in the description there. Now, here's the thing. The reason why I'm introducing you to Webinar Jam and Ever Webinar is because that's what we use to power our webinars. It has great webinar options, things like being able to put offers in, right? A lot of great link tracking, really good stuff for if you're building a business off webinars. Say you sell like online products. But we all know this in real estate, a lot of people show up to webinars and they're just fact finding. They're just getting started with their home search or thinking about selling their home or thinking about moving to that new place. Well, that means that follow up is actually going to be most important. So Webinar Jam and Ever Webinar are really good for, hey, I want you to make some kind of decision. I want to make a sale during the webinar or something like that, or book an appointment, which could be part of what your webinar scheme is all about. So just keep in mind that some of the tools in Ever Webinar and Webinar Jam aren't really conducive to like following up the way that you and I both know is required to actually convert online real estate leads. So just know that I partner this up with another system. Just want to put that out there. Okay. First things first, before we jump into the actual tools, you got to be able to drive people to the webinar, right? So you got to have an ad, and your ad structure is going to be really simple. I'm going to give you the exact structure right here, really basic stuff, but it works. First part of the ad is your big promise. You first have to start off with a big promise. Hey, I'm going to show you exactly how to blank. Like even this video, right? I started it with a big promise. I'm going to show you exactly how to generate leads in your sleep. That's the big promise. Now, the next thing you add in there is actually not the stuff that you're going to teach them, not yet. You're actually going to give some kind of social proof. So it might sound something like this. Hey, I'm going to show you exactly how to generate leads in your sleep. Well, actually, let's stop that. Let's use a real life, like, hey, I'm going to try to get more sellers for my webinar, right? Or more buyers. What's a topic that we can use? I'm going to show you exactly how to get your offer accepted the first time, or I'm going to show you exactly how to get the most value out of your home while paying your realtor the least amount of money. Whatever it is that you're going to be teaching the webinar on. Then you go straight into social proof, just like blank. And now you give a case study or a testimonial, right? Just like my client, Steven, who was able to list his home, but purchase his first home before, right? Maybe it's a buy before you sell a webinar. He was able to purchase his next home without any contingencies and before he even moved out of his home that he ended up selling, right? So I'm going to show you exactly how to get your new home without having to sell your current home and be contingent, right? Maybe that's the webinar. Actually, I think I just gave myself a great idea. Anyways, just like Steve, who was able to do that exact thing by following this exact process in this webinar. So now this is the next section. In this webinar, I'm going to teach you blank, blank, and blank. You list out the items that you're going to teach them. Okay. Then you go back to the big promise. So in this webinar, I'm going to teach you exactly how you can have a third-party company buy your house before you even buy your next house so that you're a non-contingent buyer. I'm going to show you exactly how to write the offer and how to lock in the financing and unlock your current equity without actually putting your house on the market and writing a contingent offer, right? So that's exactly how you can buy your next house before you sell. I reintroduce the big promise. Then I have a call to action. Okay. So that's how you're going to be able to buy before you sell. So go ahead and register right now. Click that link below and you could be like blank. And then we jump back into social proof, just like Stephanie, who was able to do this, just like Samantha, who is just like you, just like Robert, who is just like you, right? You have to have these examples. Now, don't make them up. Go find them. If you don't have those clients, go find clients of your broker, of your team leader, of your mentor, and walk through how they did that, right? So again, ad structure, big promise, social proof. What are you going to teach them? Remind them of the big promise, have them call to action for them to register, social proof, call to action, done. Hopefully by the first call to action, they're already clicking the link and they don't even see the rest of your ad, right? That's ideal. So anyways, that's the ad structure. Okay, then they're going to go to a landing page. Now this is super simple. It's actually going to follow the same structure, right? It's going to be really clean, to the point, buttons for you to register right away, a form that pops up if you're trying to escape, right? They call that like the exit form pop up. And here's the thing. All you got to do is in bold, very clean writing. Don't get cursive or any fancy stuff. Very clean writing, bold, webinar, free webinar if it's free webinar for blank. Remind them what they're there for. What you will learn is blank, 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 right? And then in addition to that, you're going to do a little bit about the host, right? You're going to have your picture, who's the host, something that adds credibility to it. And then after that, you're also going to want any testimonials down there. Any testimonials if you have them. And keep in mind, your button has to be very prominent. I would have at least 2 buttons where they can click to register on the form. So right there in the upper right hand corner. And then in addition to that, like right below the what you will learn. And it typically will say like reserve my spot now. Okay. Super simple landing page. Okay. The information you want to capture is up to you. Depends on if you want just name and email or if you want name, email, and phone number, right? I wouldn't suggest doing more than that. The fewer things that people have to submit, the more likely they are to finish the full registration. Okay. You can always do that and then send them to something else. So what we do for, let's say we're doing one of those and it's to a warm database, right? People inside of there, maybe they want to book some time with us. What we'll have them do is register. And instead of sending them to a thank you page, we send them to a Calendly link where they could book time for their one-on-one strategy as one of our free bonuses, right? So that's something that we do. All right. So structuring your webinar, easy. This is the easiest part because you've already done the ad, or you've already pushed the video that you're going to boost, right? You don't necessarily have to run ads. You can run a boosted post. Those actually work really well. Anyways, you're going to follow that exact structure. The only difference is going to be instead of saying the 3 things or 5 things you're going to teach them, you actually just teach them. So again, you start off your presentation. Now there's a couple small things that you're going to have to add in there too. First, your presentation is going to be super simple. It's got to say something like exactly what the title is and what you're hoping to accomplish. Okay, that's your opening slide. Then you want to jump into a get to know the speaker slide. Real quickly, it's got to be super brief and it should be not just your professional credentials, but also about you, about your family. What are the things you like to do? It should be pictures of you hiking. I always put pictures of me and my family and doing weird stuff or fun stuff, right? That's the first slide. So after the personal slide, it gets really simple. Okay, then we jump into remind them of what you're going to teach them. Give 1 item of social proof, right? Hey, just like Bethany, let's go into this case study, blah, blah, blah. We're going to show you exactly how you can do the same thing that she did. Then you have a call to action. The call to action is super simple. Your number 1 thing is going to be booking a strategy session. So give them the option to book a strategy session. One of the great parts about Webinar Jam and every webinar is that you can create offers in advance. And I'll show you that in just a second in this video. I'm going to give you a couple step-by-step guides on how to do that if you were going to use every webinar for this or webinar jam. So I'm giving you that structure, okay? You got the offer out there. It's book a strategy session. It's download this free guide. It's whatever you want them to do, right? But booking a free strategy session is probably the best one for us real estate agents. So keep in mind that the key to all this is going to be following up. Like I said, some people are going to be so far away from actually selling or buying that you're going to need to follow up with them. So you need to make sure that you have a good email, text message, and phone call reminder sequence already set up in whatever CRM you're using. Make sure that they are tagged correctly based on when they register, right? And so if you need to go and create a Zap or something like that, or create some kind of integration between your webinar platform and your CRM, go ahead and figure that out. I'm sure there's plenty of tutorials online that already exist that can help you with that. Now, here's the beautiful part that you've been waiting for. And it's like, okay, great, Isaac, I can do a webinar every other Wednesday at 4 or 5 or 6 p.m. and do that, but how can I do that in my sleep? I can't also be running webinars while I sleep. That's why Webinar Jam's tool, EverWebinar, is crucial. What's really great about that is that you can take a webinar that you've recorded live. So maybe you do it live once or twice or 3 times and you figure out which one you really like. And what you can do is then turn it into an evergreen webinar. Evergreen means it's always ready to go. There's settings on EverWebinar where you basically just pull over one of your recorded webinars and make it evergreen. And so what that means is that landing page that's connected to it, all that stuff, what you can do is you can set it up to be on demand, or every 15 minutes, or every hour, or 3 times a week. But you've probably seen these webinars where you go, you're going to sign up for a webinar and, oh, what do you know? It's starting in 9 minutes. Let's be real. They're not really going to start in 9 minutes, and they're not doing another one 2 hours from now. Those are pre-recorded webinars, and people are fine with that. And then the thing is, when you can do the live webinar and then push it into an evergreen recording, then you can just run ads to that. And when people register, then you get their contact information, you put them in the follow-up system that you've already built, and boom, now you're generating leads literally while you sleep, if they're awake when you're asleep, right? So that's a really interesting thing to do. We've done it for buyers, for sellers. During COVID, when everything was uncertain, we did a ton of webinars like this. And what's great about having the evergreen webinar too is not just that you can run ads at it and generate leads while you sleep, because you definitely should do that, but also you always have it ready anytime anything's happening. Maybe you're at a party and you're in a rush and someone wants to corner you about this conversation, but you have to leave, or maybe they have to leave, or maybe you're at an open house and they got to take off. Their kids are already packed up in the car and they're on their way somewhere else. Well, what you can do is say, hey, you know what? Sounds like you have a lot of great questions. I have done a webinar recently. I'm going to send you the link, or you can scan this QR code, even better, and you can actually get all of those questions that you have right here answered about that thing. So in that example, right, for what we said earlier, the buy before you sell program, maybe you're talking to somebody at an open house and they're like, yeah, I would love to, but I remember being a contingent buyer in 2020 during COVID and it was terrible for me. Okay, cool. Well, good news. I actually have a webinar where I answer all the questions that you just had right now. I know you're in a rush, so here, let me do this. Let me get your phone number. I'm going to text you a link to that webinar. Go ahead and watch it and let me know what you think, because it could be the solution that you're looking for. Right? These are easy ways to help you convert people and drive them towards educational stuff, because one of your main things that you got to do as a real estate professional nowadays is understand the difference between when it's time to have a conversion-based conversation versus a contribution-based conversation. And right now, if you were able to do those webinars, it's actually both, because you're educating people, but the people that engage, they show up, maybe they select the offer at the end of the webinar to book a strategy session. Now you went from, hey, I was just contributing to your knowledge of how this stuff works, to, wow, it's time to now have a conversion-based conversation. Super critical. So real quickly, I'm going to jump into showing you exactly how I set up a super simple webinar inside Webinar Jam, just so you can not be maybe intimidated by some of the technology. It's some of the easiest tech you can use to set up a webinar right now. Now, this doesn't include text message follow-up and all that stuff. I'm not going to break all that down in this video, but I will in a future video. But trust me, this is all you're going to need to get started with this strategy today. All right, so here we are. We are inside Webinar Jam, and you can see there's two different products, Webinar Jam and Ever Webinar. This is a new account for me, so there's not all this stuff, crazy stuff set up. There's just a couple webinars that I kind of just built out for the mortgage team. But so, for example, here's one, Bulletproof Buyer, but I'm going to add a new webinar. Okay, I'm going to do express configuration for this. Full configuration just means you answer more questions, right? So I'm going to go express configuration. It's super simple right now or schedule it for later. I'm going to do schedule it for later. Okay. Webinar name. Now, here's a quick tip. How to without is one of the best formulas for creating attention grabbing content. How to blank without blank. How to buy now and sell later without being contingent, right? I'm just going straight through that. I'm going to probably use the same thing. Actually, this is better as a title than it is as the webinar name. This is just buy before you sell. Webinar description. Guess what? I'm just going to ask ChatGPT what that should look like. It's max 150. So I'm going to tell ChatGPT, hey, ChatGPT, write me a webinar description for how to buy before you sell, max 150 characters, right? Super simple. Or if I'm good at writing content, I'll write that. If you have an extra presenter, you can add them here. But if it's just you, you'll just show up there. Okay, I'm going to click save. Basic settings. Now, if you don't have, now pay attention to this right here. You are going to have to go through this step, understand that your emails, if you're going to be emailing from the system, you don't necessarily have to, right? You can be using another system that sends out emails that you've connected to Webinar Jam. But if you are, you have to either set up and configure this or be okay with the fact that your security is low and you might not get high deliverability rate. All right. So that's important to just kind of note. It's like, okay, great. I'm going to save that. It's going to let me go to the next step. Am I going to do one single session? Is there multiple sessions, recurring sessions? I like the one single session. I don't want people to go and select multiple days if I'm going to be doing it live. Now, that's the main purpose here, is doing a live one. So I keep it single session. I'll go ahead and enter in the section date, right? So let's just say it's going to be here at that time and in this time zone. Great. I'll add that. I'll move on. Okay, enable split testing. I'm not going to worry about that. What that's basically saying is like which landing page is going to do better. I like to keep the very clean ones. Now, if you have the highest converting is going to be something like this, where you come in and there's a video in there. Now, the other thing is, what's the registration? Where do we want the registration button? I like registration buttons, not registration bubbles or forms or bars. So I have found the best conversion using the button there. People are just kind of used to it, and you'll know what I mean by that when this opens up. So it just has this register button right here. You would just write the name of the webinar, key bullet points. I don't think I got to tell you what to do there. Obviously, don't do it in Latin or whatever this is. Then you're going to edit your video. What's the video you want? So it's probably a video you have on YouTube that you've uploaded already. That's again your video ad. It's big promise, right? Social proof. What are you going to teach them? That's all here in this video as well. It's going to be pretty much the same one as the ad, if not exactly the same one as the ad that drove them here. All right. So then boom, have a register. I like to edit the register button and say reserve my spot. For some reason, that seems to work better when we have A/B tested. All right. So reserve, and I go all caps, reserve my spot now. I could change the colors, all that good stuff. So let's just save it. Boom, actions. I'm going to save and exit. Okay, now I have my landing page done. I've saved that. Notifications, my confirmation. What's really important about this is that you just kind of read through this. If you do have a password, it'll be there. If you don't, I highly recommend you do not. That'll be there. So immediately, this is an email that I want to send immediately. Okay. I can go ahead and change that. I'll test my email. Again, you don't have to change too much on this. This is really basic. Now, one of the things I do always change in here, though, is I will add the bullet points reminding them of what they're signing up for and what they're going to learn. That's always helpful. Okay. Then you can add in any additional pre-webinar reminders, right? I will typically do one 24 hours before and an hour before. 15 minutes is already built in, so I leave that one there. So 24 hours before, an hour before, reminding them. All right. Post webinar notifications, the exact same thing. I love making sure that they get a thank you for attending, or hey, in case you missed it, right? They have all of that already set up. So I can add an email here. I can say, hey, here's that, and here's the replay link. This thing's already built for me. This is what I'm talking about. It's super simple. I don't have to build all these complex funnels. Now I can, but I don't have to. Okay, so there we go. Boom, finish. I'm ready to rock. So now I'm able to go to my dashboard and see this webinar. Buy before you sell webinar. Cool. So the next thing we're going to do to make it evergreen. So now I've run my thing. I've done my webinar, right? If I'm running a test, this is how the webinar looks. It'll take you, like it says, about 15 seconds to get going there. I'm going to jump inside the studio, record my webinar, and then I'll show you some stuff. So, make sure you remember this is a test, all that fun stuff. But anyways, when you're ready to actually do it, what you're going to do is go to presenter, and you're going to actually go live into the room and record the webinar. Super simple stuff. Okay, it's going to tell you, hey, make sure you're not distracted, all this other stuff. What camera are you using? The obviously, like, use my MacBook camera. I'm not going to start over there. Anyways, I'll enter the room. You heard some echo. Cool. Now this is down here now, because that's where my webcam is, or I guess my MacBook's webcam. But see here, I'm going to do this thing. Boom, boom, boom. I'm done recording. I'm going to get out of there. All right. Go live. Yeah, I can start it or no. So anyways, what I want to do is for the sake of this, I'm just going to go ahead and leave the studio. Now, let's imagine I've done all that. Now, what I would do then after is go to Ever Webinar. Now, I haven't had any, like I said, this is a new account. So even if you go back and see, all my stuff is in the future, because this is a new account we set up for another company. But anyways, webinars. Okay, I can add a webinar. I can upload an external file. Maybe I recorded it somewhere else on Zoom at one point. Cool. Or a previous webinar session. If I select that, I would be able to select Bulletproof Buyer or the Buy Before You Sell program right here. Which specific event, because maybe I did it 3 times and I like the third one the best. Okay, terrific. That's the one I'm going to use. Okay, basic settings. None of those are configured. Here's the super simple stuff. The titles, just use exactly what you already know. It should autofill. And then webinar moderators. Who are you and who's moderating? Super basic stuff. Now, the cool part about the only other thing I would say that you want to go make sure you do is you're going to go into schedules and registration to configure all that. So when I go and save all this, we'll go here, edit, and we're here. So registration, like I said, you want to set up your registration page, which fields, all these different things. Go through and play with this. I'm not going to walk you through every single one of these. I wanted to show you how easy it is to set up a webinar and throw it into every webinar. Now, I'm certain you got a ton of value out of that video. And like I said at the beginning of the video, I promised I would make it super easy for you to follow step by step. And there you go. You can set up a webinar that easy. Start generating leads, throw it into every webinar, and start generating them even when you're not there ready to put on a real live webinar. So that's the thing. Now, here's the other promise I made you, is that I would give you an opportunity to join Agent War Room. All you got to do is go into the description. I'm sorry, not the description. Go into the comments below. Sometimes I throw myself off. Go into the comments below and drop in the word wartime, and I will go ahead and send you a link so that you can join our free online community called Agent War Room, where we teach stuff like this and go super deep. We share documents, all that fun stuff. So I will see you on the other side of that. And if you're curious about how we at Real Estate CEOs and Agent War Room partner with agents and brokers and team leaders just like you all across the US and Canada, here's what you're going to want to do. Go into the description below, click that link to book one-on-one time with me, and I'll see you on the other side. Until next time, keep crushing it.